All right, folks, I think maybe a few more will be coming, but I think we should start so we can finish on time. So if everyone would take their seats. So this is the fourth and final masterclass of the day, and it's on fundraising. And it's on fundraising from U.S. sources of funding. And I was surprised because I'm from the U.S. and I didn't know that there was access to U.S. funding from outside of the country. I thought it was much more parochial and national than that. But Eelco Keij is going to tell us the opposite, that that's not true. And he's going to explain how one can tap the sources of funding. As we know, most of the funding for nonprofits and for this kind of work is in the U.S., probably, right?
Yes,
yeah,
that's true.
So it'd be good to know how to tap it. And so Eelco is the founder of the Keylance Consultancy in New York, but you're Dutch?
Yeah, Dutch American.
Dutch American, oh, okay. And so he's one of the few who's working in this area, and he specializes in analyzing cross-border grants from U.S. foundations and for nonprofits. He's a lawyer. And the rest you'll tell yourself. Eelco,
yeah.
I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Welcome here. First one thing in German. Ich spreche auf Deutsch, also falls Sie Fragen haben und es nicht auf Englisch machen wollen, dann können Sie es ruhig auf Deutsch machen. Alles klar? In Dutch, French, Spanish, if you really want the whole game, but no Swahili, I'm sorry. And thank you very much for being here. It is sunny, it is the afternoon, and you've had a lot of presentations, which means you are the diehards, and I salute you. This is really tough. I'm going to try to make it as interesting and entertaining as possible, for which I also need your help. That means any question, here, now, there, then. My smartest questions only come up 3 days later, so send me an email, but if you have some now, please do not hesitate. We're all here to learn from each other. There might be some in the room who have already some experience with fundraising. Brief about myself. Eelco Keij is my name, Dutch American. Since 1 year I've been living in the Netherlands as a fundraiser for a university. I've been doing this type of work, providing nonprofits, especially in the development sector, consultancy work on U.S. foundation grant making, because this is a really global market, and I didn't know of it until 2008 when I basically stumbled on it, and I'd like to give this introduction to you and show you what is out there and what is possible. Good. So today I want to talk about how big is this market? U.S. foundations, what are we talking about? How many, how much money is involved? Where does it go to? Who gets what already? You might like to know that. You have some competitors or some colleagues. Maybe they already received some funding. Of course, I want to talk about how do you do it yourself. My goal is here that you leave this room and that you have some sense of, okay, this is the market, this is how it works, this is how long it takes, and this is how I could do, how I could start myself or as a team. And you might find that it's not for you, which is also great. I heard of people Googling months on this market and they couldn't find it. It is not on Google. I developed this market in terms of analytics, but it's out there. And it has been there for decades. So again, if you have any question on that, let me know, but I'm trying to make it as practical as possible. Because of the limited time frame, I have to apologize that we cannot go into, which admittedly is a very boring part, but necessarily important, the administrative and legal requirements. What if the Ford Foundation, for example, wants to give you a grant? What do you do? How do you do it? Do you set up another account? Can you just submit the money from one country to another? What are the procedures, etc.? How much time is involved? I will not have the time today to speak on that. I'll be giving this presentation again, longer, in Helsinki soon. So if you want to have the full story, you can go there. I do this in many countries, but for me this was the first time, and thank you again for inviting me, with a focus on environment. And that was interesting because when I was a consultant in the more development world, human rights sector world, and I went to the first masterclass this morning, and she also spoke of the interaction between environment and human rights. That's also here. We were working with people from Manipur, northeast India, who got detained, jailed, no access to a lawyer. And then you really see that this funding market and the restrictions after 9/11, they are intertwined and are getting stronger and stronger. So I'm happy she covered that part, which also would have been in my presentation. Okay, just to make clear, there are other ways to get money from the United States. The government, the United Nations, the World Bank, and high net worth individuals. And with that we mean Bill Gates, not the foundation, but as a person. He can also write personal checks. We're not going to talk about that. These are other avenues, and there are other people who are specialized in that. But I do not have that. So if you want to get in touch with somebody who has that knowledge, send me an email and I will try to find somebody for you. I do not have it. Market overview. Okay, so how much do Americans give on a total basis every year to charity? And with that I mean everything, foundations, companies, individuals. How much of that part is going abroad? And what are the trends? What can we see? Is going up, is going down, specific areas? And of course, environment, we'll look at that. And some success stories, as we call them. Which other organizations in the environmental field are out there that already have received funding, even stronger, that have a pattern almost of receiving funding from American foundations. So, anyone who has not been to the United States before? Okay, so that's the second question. Would you know, in terms of the foundations that give, the so-called grant-making foundations, where are they based? Mostly, yes. Washington, D.C., New York, California, yes, exactly. So we're basically talking about East Coast, West Coast. You all heard about the Bible Belt? That there are fewer number of foundations, but they have a lot of money. But we're not going to talk about that because I don't think any one of you is working in the field of religion. We're talking about environment. So, 2012, just a recent number. Look at $316 billion to charity in 1 year. And you can see how the larger part is composed of donations by individuals. And where do you think that those individuals give most of their money to? Yes, religion, exactly. This is because I try to understand. I'm Dutch American, but I was born Dutch, so I didn't grow up with that mentality of giving back, as they call it, from a very young age, and I never really got it until my son turned 3 years old, and my wife and I, we decided to give him a piggy bank. He loved it, and soon enough, it was completely full. And it gets very heavy, and then you go to the bank. They have these funky machines, you put it in, and then it goes all over. And I don't know how much came out, like $23 or something. Quite a bit for such a small kid. And so I thought, okay, we're going to take out like $1. He can buy something for himself, and the rest we'll put on his bank account. And then my wife said, we used to live in West Harlem, Manhattan, and we have some shelters in that area. And she said, I'm going to take $5, put it on a check in his name, and we're giving that to a local charity in our neighborhood. And I thought it was a great idea. That's really, and we try to explain it to him, and every year we do so. And that is where it starts. It's a kind of a mentality. And that mentality is reflected in those numbers. So if you see here what's been going on in terms of charity charitable giving staggeringly going up. Now, what is this little problem here? The crisis, right? But in terms of U.S. foundations, this is not a little problem. This is a big problem. Suppose you are a program officer at the Gates Foundation in Seattle, Washington. You have a lot of money, and the program officers are basically who say, okay, I want to give that money to that organization, etc. Of course, the board needs to tick it off, but they're the ones who come up with the real proposals. Suddenly, your endowment, that a lot of money you had on the side, has shrunk. And what happens to the number of applications you're getting? That's increasing. That's not really a balancing act anymore. That is a problem. So what do they do? What do you think that happened as a result of the crisis? They reduce giving in two ways. Which ways? That's right. Exactly. Exactly. The multi-million grants that everybody's dreaming about, that's not so much anymore. You can still find it in the medical field, but it's really much less than it used to be. And of course, they had to cut other programs as well. So, and what happened? Have you ever tried to get a grant from a U.S. foundation? Have you ever gone to a website where it says the application criteria? Do you recognize the phrase, "We do not consider unsolicited"? You do, yeah. Don't contact us by email, phone, fax, anything. So they are building this wall around themselves. And that's what happened after the crisis. They don't want to be reached anymore unless they want to reach you. So what I'm trying to talk about today is not how to aggressively break through that wall, but how to, in a smart and more subtle way, circumvent the wall and yet be able to talk to them. Okay? Another thing that happened, by the way, I almost forgot. Once I was at the Gates Foundation, and I was talking to this program officer, and she showed me 2 grant proposals from 2 different organizations. Now, funnily, these organizations, on the content, they were overlapping. They both had some stuff on, I think it was the elderly. Worse, they were from the same country. So she said, look, I have to pay, as a Gates Foundation, I have to spend money in terms of lawyers, time, all that comes around with giving out grants. That costs money as well. I can't spend any grants on one individual proposal that is, one, so low, and more importantly, because not that you only think, oh, only the big ones do it. No, because they didn't sit together. If they had been matching their proposals, I might have been able to give them some money because it would have cost me only one time this whole administration to give them money. And they're in the same country. So please, if you ever consider going this route, especially on an environment which is not really bothered by borders, you try to figure out who your potential competitors or your friends are. Who can you work with and who can you send in a joint application? Because that's what they really want, especially after the crisis. Now here you see again foundations out of the 316 billion, remember? It's going up. It's now back to pre-recession levels. We're about 340, 350. Around 40 billion is spent, donated by charity, by foundations, to charity. But that's also national. Now, and especially with the environment, this is a bit hard because I'm going to focus on the international part, which is really leaving the United States. But there's many organizations, and they are growing in the United States, that are working on environment, which again is not bothered by borders. So all I'm saying is I'm going to show you numbers, but in reality it's more. Okay? But I have to draw the line somewhere to give you a picture of these global flows of money in your field. Out of these $40 billion, approximately $3 to $4 billion leave the United States, really leaving. We can track it. We can see it in their tax records where it's going to. Now, this is just for your background. Different type of foundations, they all can give away money. But a private foundation, how many grant-making foundations do you think there are in the United States? Roughly. 5,000? Who bids more? Several tens of thousands. That is a politically interesting answer. Who can bid more? Seven? 7,000. I'm asking for more than what he just did. 50,000. 100,000. 120 approximately. So really, there are a lot of foundations now. They not all give internationally, of course, and most of these are very small family foundations. They have their own money. They don't need personnel. They don't need staff. They don't need an extra office, and it's for local issues. That is fine. But corporate foundations, they're also there. And corporate foundations, think of the Coca-Cola company, which as a separate legal entity has the Coca-Cola Foundation. Now, legally they are not connected, but of course in terms of money they are, because if less Coca-Cola products are being sold, Coca-Cola Foundation eventually will have less to spend on charity. The private foundations, they are stuck by 5% rule. Very brief, they have to spend a number of their net invested assets each year in order to maintain their tax-deductible status. Because that's why people really give money, right? Because they can deduct it from taxes. Let's be clear about that. You may not like the pragmatic approach of this, but this is why people want to donate. If you want to maintain the status, and if you're a private foundation, yes, 5%. Yeah, because that's a private foundation. Yes, exactly. So, and once that was also in Germany, but that was right after the crisis. This guy stood up and he said, yeah, we got a phone call from a U.S. foundation and it said, would you like to have $200,000? He said, sure. So what happened? This was November. Tax date can be 1st of January. Not always true. Can be 1st of April, can be 1st of June. Depends. But let's say for now it's the 1st of January. This was post-crisis. Foundations were trying to give away about that 5%, but really not more because their endowments had been shrinking, etc. And one project had fallen through. So suddenly it's like, we need to get rid of that money. And they called that German organization. So why did they call them? Why did they not call you?
They didn't know me.
That's right. That's right. They didn't know you. They apparently had some form of relationship with that. I think you're natural. Yeah. Okay. So, give me a couple of grant-making foundations. I already mentioned two. Ford, Gates. Who else? Rockefeller. Hughes. MacArthur. Okay. Oh, good, guys. Come on. Okay. Gates, Ford, Buffett, Packard, Bloomberg, Moore, Hewlett, Rockefeller, MacArthur. Thank you very much. Carnegie. See a difference between 1 and 2 in giving? Without Gates, the picture would have been very different, right? And these are, in terms of issues, the most granted areas. Health, again, Gates. International development and environment. Environment, it's going up. In general, international grant making is going up because there's more organizations in the United States that are starting to deal with international issues. There's more awareness. But environment certainly is. Now, as a rule of thumb, the Americans do not want to give to rich countries. That makes sense, right? So why then does the bulk of the money go to Western Europe? In fact, Switzerland, such a poor country, is getting the bulk of it. Why is that? Give me a couple of reasons. I'm sorry? They're reliable, and then what do they do with the money? Exactly. So it's the pass-through system. And the second reason is exactly that. They have the capacity, the trust to deal with these types of grants, which on the ground people might not have or organizations might not have. There's another reason. This is always, I only had one workshop, I think, where they had them all three, because there's another one. One more reason. Explain.
Well, there's a lot of money out there, as we see, but you can't just give it away to anybody because you don't know where it ends up. And
Right.
often the people who need it most are also high corruption rates or what have you.
That's true, but it comes very close to your arguments, so like the reliability factor, and you know the board. Sorry, accountable. Yeah, the board is not going to tick off grant proposals that let's not spend it there because we might not see any result impact because that's what they want. No, the Ebola crisis. Tip? No hint? No. Medical research. If something like the Ebola crisis happens, you can see suddenly this whole flush of new proposals, applications going out. And why? Because they want to invest in research to fight it immediately. Most of these research centers are either in the United States or in Western Europe. And it doesn't matter if a vaccination or an antidote or whatever can be found in Lisbon or in Helsinki or here, as long as the impact is for those affected. Okay? So, and here you see a bit more true spread out Sub-Saharan Africa first. And again, this is all international. I'm not even going to the environmental part. So here, do you know the Environmental Grantmaker Association? You know? Yes? No? Who does? Please hands, because this is unclear to me. You don't know? You don't? You do know? Okay. So these are the grant makers, and you see that in the human rights field as well. They organize. Every year they come together and say, hey, where did you give your money to, and why did you do that, and what are the latest trends, and which new nonprofits, grassroots or not, are coming up with great ideas, because these program officers, it's their job to give the money away, but they don't want to give it away just like that. They want to have it well spent with a high impact. So they come together. And now this organization, for the 5th time, they're aggregating numbers from their own members. They have around 200 members, which is, and there's some large ones, and it's very interesting. You can see that it's going up 19% from 2011. They gave more to more than 6,000 organizations around the globe, so they're really doing some research, and I can highly advise you to download the report, at least the executive summary. In issues, biodiversity, species preservation, energy, coastal marine ecosystems, which is also going up. I mean, they don't track it just by the numbers, but also by the content. How do you think that they find these numbers? How do they know? Are they going individually to each and one of them? And why would this not be possible in Europe or even in Germany? Data protection, I don't really know if that's true, but at least it's not there. It's in the tax records. If you are a foundation in the United States and you give away money to a charity, you have to put it in your tax records. And I think that's a great thing because it makes it transparent. And you can really go to a person or an organization and say, I saw that you spent X money to that organization in this year for this project. Why did you do that? Or we work in a similar field. Can we talk? I mean, there's all kinds of strategic ways then to use that knowledge. I haven't come across any other country, and I've been speaking in all continents, that has a similar, I call it a transparency rule, as the United States. And I really think that that's a good thing. Because in the end, also grant makers are helped when their information is out there. How much percentage do you think that the Ford Foundation rejects on incoming applications on an annual basis? Even higher than that, yeah, around 97, 98%. Even they, who have a pretty clear website where you can see all their goals and issues, they get so much stuff that is unrelated to their causes, or they can't fund it, of course. Imagine you are nowhere to be found, and suddenly there's an article about you in a newspaper by a journalist, and you get wow, suddenly there's a load of applications and your information is not out there. So anybody just starts writing time. And that time is spent on both sides, those who send in the application and those who have to read it and say no thank you or yes or no, come back. It creates a whole dynamics. You can prevent or at least mitigate it by having this transparency rule. So here you see, I'm glad they also included the non-members. This is for environment, of course. You can see how it's going up, and this is still the after effect, of course, of the crisis. But it's really going up. I mean, that is the good news. And then again, what is exactly environment? It's cross-cutting with human rights, health, which is also something you can use to your advantage. Because if you go to the Gates Foundation, you would say, oh, but they only work on the health issues. It had nothing to do with, no, of course not. Sometimes you can frame it, that's a negative word, but to write it in that way that it also falls in their own categories. And say, okay, we'll have a look at it, maybe with an extra partner. So, and now we're going to the, I think there's too many people in the room, so if you could split those up into, if you could share these numbers, and can I have one just to, yeah, so 1 or 2 per table. I have a couple of handouts for you. We'll do them one by one. And what I'm going to show you first is the top 50 countries that are receiving grants from international, from U.S. foundations, international grants, in the years 2003 to 2015. Why 2003? Because the Foundation Center, is an institution based in New York with other offices. They do this aggregation of data every year based on tax records. It's a lot of work. In fact, they get U.S. grants to do this work. And then the cycle is complete. But at least it gives us a rather transparent view of what is out there in terms of grants. And I think that's a really great thing to have in the civil society sector. So 2003, they started to put this all online, which is why we cannot have more data than this. But still, it gives us more than enough to devise a good strategy, or at least to know where not to go after. So everybody can, yeah, okay. Now, and this is all. I put also, it's not only environment, it's human rights, it's really everything. And you see the staggering number that is going to Switzerland, right? So let's go to the next slide. I'm sorry, this is like a 10-minute walking exercise. Though I'll take half of it. Is it? Yeah, question, what do these mean? It means first you see the country, then you see the total amount of US Foundation grant money that they have received in 2003, 2015. Then you see how many organizations in that country that whole amount was distributed among. So a relatively low number for Switzerland, which means high amounts. And then you see the number of grants. How many grants went to these 229 organizations? So many of them got multiple, in 1 year, multiple grants. And lastly, of course, how many grant makers made those transactions? 158. Okay, what I'm going to show you now, I try to, based on the Foundation Center, and this is, I'm sorry, it's a 4-page thing, because these are all the countries. If I try to do them electronically, biggest one up, it all got screwed up. So I had to print all countries, which may be in your favor, because otherwise I might have excluded some. But these are all countries that have received what the Foundation Center considers environmental grants. Now, again, it should be more, because what is environmental? And even those people, excuse me, would you mind sharing? The people at the Foundation Center, they are now starting to realize that the international market is also a thing, but I don't know exactly where they draw the line. There you go. You already have some? There you go. Oh, and by the way, people, all these slides, the organization, you have them here on the computer. You can all have them, of course. And I would urge you to distribute among people you know and the information is relevant for, because this is a thing about transparency. I really like it that these numbers are out there. So please share with, and the presentation as well, with as many people as you want. Next one. Everybody saw this one? The 4... Okay, you got it? You got this one? Yeah, you do? Okay, good. That's every country, yes. In the world. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, unless if they're not on the list, then yeah. I'm sorry. I told you there was a technical glitch. Now it might be that there's a glitch here with these numbers. If that is correct, I will have to resubmit them. And so be careful about the second one. Somebody started comparing them. If the second one that I gave to you, the 4 ones, are the same numbers as in the first, that means that the conversion, I've sent them emails twice about this, and they don't want to fix the bug. It's a bug. But in that case, I have to, thank you very much. In that case, I'm going to fix it and to send you the new numbers. So be very careful about the second one, okay? This one is independent of it. These are for 2012, the top 50 recipients of grants from foundations. And so this is extremely hard to read. Oh, you already have some? Oh, yeah, exactly. And it's like, but I tell you, on the screen, they're very well to read. So open them up on your screen, and it's a long list anyway. And I'm going to ask you, thinking yourself, who do you know already in those foundations, in those recipient organizations? Maybe you know people. And if you know people, those are the givers. Yep, and the recipients. Here's a smart man using his light. This is recipients awarding. Why am I handing out all these numbers? Of course, just to give you an idea how much money is going around the world, not for any specific, like, oh, that organization. Of course, it's nice if you see organizations that you recognize, because what are you going to do if you recognize an organization? You go and open the screen, you see, oh, that organization I know, and they've received money. What are you going to do? Call them up, right? Hey, isn't it time that we should have a coffee? Because you're not going to ask them for their contacts, but at least you can ask them for how much time did it take you? What is the commitment you had to show? What were the obstacles? What was the legal requirements? Everything that goes along the way. I'm telling you, the experience to open this market for your own organization is out there. You don't have to say, oh, let's start all from scratch and do it ourselves. You must know somebody somewhere who has done this successfully. All right. Environment. Let's do those last ones. Because we are in Germany. Who's from Germany here? You see, that was a good choice. Yeah. What I'm going to give you, why don't you start with this one, and then I'll do this one. These are the givers and the recipients in Germany of 2003, 2005 in the field of environment. No, you don't need to work with them. No, this is just to give you a first. And these are these you can read well. Sure. And these numbers are available for any country. I'm picking out Germany because we are in Germany. And as a kind of respect to the hosting country, of course. But would you mind sharing? I don't know how many I have. But they're there for but those are the givers. These are the recipients. So if you want to know all these statistics on Haiti, they're out there. Yeah, come on. It says who? It says who? To all the German people here in the room, do you recognize any organization on the list of recipients? The recipient list, do you recognize organizations? Do you know people within those organizations? Okay, did you know they had funding from the US? Yes, no? Well, now you know. And now you know why this is so important that these numbers are out there. And you say, okay, so how do I get to those numbers? Because I want to show you how you can do this yourself, of course. I mean, you don't need external consultants. You can do this yourself. It's very easy. And later, if you have any questions on, can you help me compile the numbers for my country, just let me know. Happy to help. I might take a while in getting back, not within one day, but happy to help. This is all about transparency. It's very important. So I'm just picking out some success stories. European Climate Foundation. Who knows the European Climate Foundation? You do. They received, actually it didn't even fit. I had to cut it at some point. Hewlett, Energy, Rockefeller, Barr. And this is recent. Do you see 2014, 2015? They received, the list goes on. It didn't fit, and I had to compress it. So they're getting all this money, which means the experience is there, the knowledge is there, the contacts are there. So, and the money they're getting is quite interesting too. And it's a foundation. It kind of comes close to what we're at here. So maybe they would be willing to help fund part of this convention and next time around. You can always ask. You have some knowledge now. Livelihood and Environment Ghana. I'm just picking out a couple. There's one that I should have taken out. That is this one, I think. Yeah, and that list also went on. So I had to cut it. Now, and you see that is in blue. This is a screenshot from the Foundation Center database. They call it directory. I'll show you how that works. And if you then go in, this is the lowest, the most detailed level, if you will, of grant information you can get. Yeah, but there's multiple, because for $5,000 it's not really worth it to go after. What if it's multiple, and sometimes they say, oh, this 5,000 is the leftover from last year. You always have to be a bit careful with these numbers and relate it to other grants. But by itself, if it's really by itself, then you know what happened? Then it was a personal contact, usually on director's level. Oh, let me help you with that, without any work. So, I don't know the time. Am I still good on time? Do I have until 5?
1 or 2, 5. Wait, hold on. Yeah, the next step, quarter, we should stop by quarter.
All right. I'm going as fast as I can, people. I really am. Fundraising cycle. Which is nothing else than how to start when you want to enter this market. all the way up till the end that you have the money in your bank account and you can start working. All those phases, schematically, consultants love schematics. You first start with identification. Out of all those many foundations, which ones to target? How do you know? You cannot possibly have the capacity to go after all of them. So these numbers are going to help. Then, and I'll go through each phase quickly. Connecting pitch, how to get in touch with them. Remember in the beginning what I said about these wall that the program officers had constructed around themselves? That is a very crucial phase. You have to get in touch with them in a different way. Thirdly, the cultivation. This is usually the longest phase. Cultivate means to build up a relationship, a true relationship, because they want to look you in the eye and say, hey, are you real? Do you really do this? Do you really want to change lives there? What's the impact, etc.? And the solicitation, it's a formal word for basically the ask, like, hey, can we ask you to give? But it never happens like that. If you follow all these steps, it goes more naturally. And usually it comes from the perspective of the potential funder who says at some point, you know what? We've been knowing for each other. I know next year we're going to work in your area. Maybe there's a work we can work together. There's something along those lines. That's how it usually goes in practice. This is just a very formal schematics, but it helps you thinking. The stewardship, that's the most often forgotten phase, which is to thank people and to thank people appropriately. Some people who give, or organizations who give $100,000 want to have their names all over. Some organizations who give $1 million don't want to be mentioned at all. So what is a true, correct way to thank them? Because the last thing you want to happen is that they are not thanked at all. That later in the summer, they had a barbecue party and said, yeah, I gave that so much money to this organization, and then I never heard back from them. That's really bad. They say that the best fundraisers are actually your donors, because they'll do the opposite if they see results. They'll talk about you with pride and say, this is what they did, and I helped them. So go briefly through the phase. Identification. Where to start? That's more directors, program officers level within your own organization. Know where to go to. Especially if you're a larger organization and you focus on different areas within environment, choose. Just don't do it all at the same time. Or be aware if there's internal resistance that could be happening from your own people to follow a certain route. Once I was with a Dutch nonprofit on my way to, and that cost me half a year to organize. I mean, not full time, of course, but slowly, diplomatic emails, etc., with the head of the then Soros Foundation. And I was there, 2 men, half a year in New York, headquarters, and the guy from Soros, he was really like to the point. Okay, you work in Nigeria, we're already there. You work in Laos, we're already there. You work in Brazil, we're already there. Talk. And then the Dutch organization said, oh, but Cuba. And he said, Cuba? This was before opening, right? And he said, oh, and you work through church, because you can help people there through your network of churches in Cuba. And I already saw, like, okay, this is a great match. They can really help each other here. Because, of course, for Soros, Cuba was, like North Korea, a no-go area to fund activities into. Director came home, and then he found out there was so much resistance among his own staff to go to Cuba. It didn't materialize. Whereas now, see what's been happened. That organization, which had to trim down to more than a third with families and everything, could have chosen that path if it had spotted it. I'm not saying there's any real mistake here, because some things go as they go and you don't really foresee the future, but I'm saying is be open to changes. Identification. Okay, for this we need to do research. We go back to our computers and we do research. And it is extremely boring. It's so boring. I really don't want to do it, but sometimes I have to, and then I do it. But I'm going to tell you how to do it so that you can do it yourself. We go to the foundation directory online. For a while, and I still find this email address on their website. If you go to this, and again, you'll get the slides. If you send them an email, what they used to do is they sent you a 24-hour pass, full access to their database directory, as it's called, for your own purpose. I would say it's worth it. So, I want to go, we tested the connection, and I want to briefly go into the database. Let's start first with the homepage of the Foundation Center, again, based in New York, other offices. They have a lot of information because, I kid you not, you see, a lot of information. And actually, they've grown so much that I call this a classic failure. There's so much you don't know even where to start anymore. This is not helpful anymore. You go beyond the point. Don't ask me where the point is, but it's just too much. What is good, however, is the Foundation directory online, and that's what I'll be talking about. So here, I already opened it. This is the Foundation directory online. Now, you have to pay for access, and you can decide how you want to purchase access. You can, I don't know I think it's like $1,400 on an annual basis. So I see a lot of organizations who share access, who share password and things, just divide it up. What you also can do is you can purchase access for a month or 2 months, and not just a whole year. That is a smart thing to do, and you can buy it in terms of the quantity of access, so to speak. A little bit of access, more access, and full access. And then you can cross-combine these, so you can have full access for a month or a little bit of access for a year, whatever you want. But my strong suggestion would be to get the full access, because this database is the best there is, and I check every time I see other fundraisers who are in this, working with this one. But it's not perfect at all. It starts already with the environment. What is it? What is human rights? What is environment? What not? It is not perfect, but it's good enough to devise a strategy and to have some real insights for your own organization. So whatever you do, if you limit yourself in time, in terms of access, please get the full access, the professional access, as they call it. So first I'm going, this is not a Mac. Yeah, we go down. This is the map of cross-border giving. This is a brilliant tool. Absolutely brilliant. And this is also where I got most of the information from that you just have over here. So grants by U.S. grantmakers to non-U.S. recipients. The darker the area on the world map, the more grants have gone to that country. Now, of course, each country stands for a multitude of nonprofits. And so let's go to 2013. You saw by 2014 and 15, I'm very careful in including those numbers because most of these tax records haven't been processed yet and are not taken into these numbers. So be a bit careful with that. Any country specific? Kenya? Okay. You snooze, you lose is what we say. Kenya, that's a lot of money. Okay. And this was, you see here now on the left side, what appears is Grantmaker and recipient. This is 2013, $112 million from 35 Grantmakers, which is a low number, to 130 recipients. I don't know so much about civil society in Kenya, but it looks to me also pretty small. And here are all the grant makers listed. And then if you click here on the recipients, then we'll see what you just saw with the Germany handout that I gave to you. You can see all organizations in Kenya that have received a grant from an American foundation in 2013. And you can categorize them differently as you please. So let's just open Kenya Women Holding. Just taking one. So the Ford Foundation gave 2 grants in 2013. And then you see how this is bluish. You can click on that. And then again, we're at that page of which I made a screenshot earlier in the presentation. This is the deepest level it goes in terms of finding out details about certain grant for a certain organization in a certain country in a certain year from a certain grantmaker. But it gives a lot of information, and it's really helpful. And now you know in your country who has received money. Your approach to those organizations, or at least some of them, might take a new turn. I'm going up again. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tabs. Power search, search grantmakers, search companies, search grants, and search 990s. 990s is a technical term for tax records. If you go to search grantmakers and search grants, you will also find the 990s. Same as for companies, company foundations, of course. You will also find them under grantmakers. And the power search is again so broad, it brings up articles, and it's very easy to drown in too much information, which is why I always recommend people to stick to 2 tabs, which is search grantmakers and search grants. Now, I call these the active and the passive search, and let me start with the passive search. If you go to search grants, you can look on a specific name. So you already know the name of an organization that you want to look up. Now, must be in there. Okay. 938 grants to everything that has to do with Greenpeace. On the left side, you can see the names of the grant makers, grantmaker country. You see, this is interesting. Since this is 2 years ago that the Foundation Center started including both grants and grant makers from non-US countries. I don't know what their selection criteria are. What I do know, it's not at all complete or comprehensive. It's nice it's there, and you might find something coincidentally that's of help to you, but don't be fooled, because of the absence of a similar tax legislation as in the United States, it's impossible to find all these numbers. It's just impossible. You would have to change the law for that. What you can do, however, is you can go look at the recipient country. So here are 10 countries with Greenpeace. Let's, I don't know, Thailand. 2013, Packard Foundation gave, sure. I'm so no. I'll go back. No. Here it said recipients. Here, let's. I'm going to exclude Thailand and should go back to original results. It says here recipient country. So receivers, okay? Yep. All right. So that is a very useful tool if you have identified who are the other players in your field of environment. Try to look them up and see if they've received any funding. What you also can do is go to the grant makers. Now there's 2 ways to look for that. First of all, you know already the name of a grant-making foundation. The Ford Foundation, for example, it's too easy, but you want to look it up, or the MacArthur. These are the names that are, oh, that was not good. Yeah, of course. Those are the names of organizations that everybody knows. So let's try it again. MacArthur. And there's a couple of MacArthur that will come up. But of course you go for the one with the biggest number of money in Chicago. And okay, so this is interesting because it gives you a whole picture of the MacArthur Foundation. It goes into the background. Here are the 990s I was talking about. Limitations, where do you give, not give, program areas, and application criteria. Be very careful with what you read here because this database is always later, out of date, if you will, compared to the original website of the foundation, of course. So always double check. People who have worked there are still working there. But look at this. It says here map grants. And remember what we saw with the other map before? It gave all the grants in the world. But here it will do the same, but then from the perspective of the MacArthur Foundation. So this is the US map. Let's go to the world map. And there you will see what MacArthur has given, if it loads. The colors don't really show up yet, but here you can. Okay. So here you can exactly individually see per foundation that you want to look up where they have given how much, etc. Okay. Now this is quite a bit of work to look this all up, but what is more time consuming? Sending applications to organizations you don't really know, nor their grant pattern and history, or spending some days of work in truly digging up relevant information that can refine your strategic choice in choosing a foundation to go after. The other one, of course, that's the big one, is like, we don't know the name of the Grantmaker because that's what we're for. There must be so many others that give grants to environment, and we don't know. So in that case, we leave that blank, and you can do a field of interest, or even a keyword search. You can put environment and international. Let's see if you do fields of interest on the left side. I'll show you if it loads. If it loads. Are we still online? Let me just type in environment to see if that works. I never use that, but I think it's about whether they give operational, like full grants or a specific tie to it. Which, by the way, after the crisis also happened. Fewer and fewer foundations gave operational grants. There is currently discussion going, especially the Ford Foundation, whether that was the right choice. It's a bit like a pendulum, but right now it's not a good era to be in. That's absolutely true. So this is, of course, 14,307. It's too many. Let's see if the word international, if that would turn down a bit. Now it's going to look for the word international, but if it says we do not fund international, it will also show up. Again, it's not a perfect database. We go back 1683, so that's still a lot. It doesn't load really quickly, but oh, here we go. So then you can add, suppose you work with women, you can add that, or health. Let's see what that brings. You see, and this is how you, 58, now that's a very doable number, but this is how you work through the database. Don't exclude anything. Just don't hit the, on the left side there's an environmental box. Don't tick that, because what you call environment might be labeled here as health or human rights. So start broad and then make this search smaller. Yes? No, this is not the power search. This is all under the Grantmaker search. Yeah, and this is the second search, which means that you don't have a clue of who you're going after, and you just try by keywords, and on the content you try to find the right. Yes. No, this is the full professional paid version. Yeah. And if you then click on these, of course, you see the profile of that foundation. You can open up the 990s. What I usually do, I check the tax records of a couple of years back. Because of the crisis, you have to be a bit more careful, because some people spent 500,000 in 2007, and then suddenly 300,000 and 100,000 and 50,000 in subsequent years on that topic. So if you only pick out one number, you don't see that trend, and it will, again, weigh on your strategic factor to go after one or not. Maybe now you understand why I put that boring picture in here, because it's really this is not the most interactive part of fundraising, I'm afraid to say. But these are the main things I want to show you about the database. Yes, please.
I have a question. My impression is that here at this convention, we
Mhm.
So to sign up for something like this, with the cost you mentioned was around $1,400 per year. That's for a 1 or 2 men show, 2 women show. That's a lot of money. So what would you say? How big does an organization have to be for this to actually make sense and the sort of cost benefit wise?
It's a relevant question. I think the answer is threefold. First of all, you can limit yourself in time, which will drive the cost down like a month, and just so 1 month we're going to look. Second, you can do it with other organizations. So like 5 or 4 organizations, and you have the first week, they have the second week, something like that. You have to organize. And thirdly, it's also like, what is it willing that you're to invest in? Do you want to have those numbers or not? Maybe sometimes I get requests from organizations that say, just give me the number so that I have a sense of what's out there, and then later we'll decide whether it's strategically relevant to us, yes or no, but at least I want to know what's out there. So that, and some will come to the conclusion, hey, this is really not for me, which is also fine, but then you can move on to another part. So it depends really on your own organizations, but I have seen other smaller ones doing all kinds of form of cooperation to make it work. Thirdly, what you really also can do is go to an organization that says, we are committed to fundraising. How many people have fundraising as a tab on their website? Fundraising is not something you just do on the side. It's a job, it's a profession. I learned it after studying because I just stumbled on the market and I like doing this kind of stuff. But you can ask for a grant even to do fundraising.
And it's about a 20% investment in money and time. Would you say it's a rule of thumb? So if you're asking for $1,000, you're investing almost about.
I think for small amounts for smaller amounts, I would say it's even more than that. But yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. Yeah, no, it's a serious decision. But you can still stop after the research, right? The only thing is once you start connecting, then you set up a new dynamic in motion, and then it's hard to pull out without, of course, disgracing yourself or just make yourself really look bad. I'm now going back to the presentation. Was this, and of course I understand that this database is something you have to play around with a bit to get a feel for it. But if you think it's something for you, then try to ask that 24-hour pass, see if they give it to you, and then try to get a feel for it. These were the most important elements of the database I really wanted to show to you so that you really can start doing it yourself. So again, we have the cross-border country map, we have the passive search, and we have the active search, composed of 2 methods. You know the name of the organization, and you don't know the organization's name, and you go on the content. Okay? Good. What do you mean with allowed to serve? Oh, sharing a password. You know, that's a good question. I've heard of 4 that was possible, but I don't think there's a max to it. I don't think that they gave the password to another. One just bought the whole damn thing and just gave the password to another. I think that's what they in reality did. Yeah, I think that's the. I don't think it's illegal, but it's not of what they would like, of course, but look, we're faced with the constrictions here, so yes, please.
You always talk about cross-border programs. I mean, we have a cross-border project. Are there specific funds for cross-border projects, or does this mean international?
It means international. So if you have cross-border international programs, the cross-border I usually use it in combination with the grant. It leaves the border of the United States to another country, but also go for the content. So it really depends on the content you're looking for. But yes, international grants are not limited in terms of environment of one country. I agree. Yes. Sorry, yes, please.
Yes. Quick question regarding targeting different foundation. What would you, based on your experience, of course, what type of foundations are more responsive? The big ones, or like the smaller one, or the less known ones?
Right. As a rule of thumb, I would say the smaller ones are less responsive if you hit them out of the blue. But, and that's now where we're going after how to get the response from the big ones too. So I'm going to go into detail for that. So we've gone through the active search, the passive search, taxes. I'm going to skip this also. So here now, identification, we have found, let's say, 20 or 30 foundations that you say, it could be interesting. How to get in touch with them, how to circumvent that wall, how to get a response from them, in your words. Okay, there are some other sources. I'm not going after these now because we really are limited on time here. Pitching and cultivating. So, finally, we can leave the desktop because this is fundraising. Fundraising is about human contact. It's about who approaches another organization. Not everybody can do that. I often see in the nonprofit world, this is not on the record, right? I see middle-aged men who are director of an organization, and whereas most of the fundraisers in organizations are women, who often have better skills, interpersonal skills in making a pitch, whereas the man, no, I am the director and I want to go. And then he can really screw up that first important meeting. If you are a fundraiser in your own organization and your director doesn't have those skills, well, you don't have to go all undiplomatic about it, but I think it's your responsibility to kindly convey to him that maybe it's good that someone else goes as well so that you can help each other in a conversation. People are giving to people, and this is really what it's about. I told this before, they want to look you in the eye. It seems all big and all global, but in the end, they want to know you. They want to know your organization. They want to know what you have done. They really want to talk to you. This is not a computer world. This is really a people's world. So, how do you connect? Well, you have to ask first, who does the connecting? Coming back to that. Who do you connect to? Are you going for the program officer? Are you going for the director? Are you going for, I don't know. Who do you go for? The Grantmaker, but within the Grantmaking organization. Who? One with the deciding power. Yes. Okay, suppose you don't know anyone with deciding power, but you know is a secretary. Okay, above. Okay, so I like it that you go for the straight shot. That is, of course, but in practice you will see that you don't know the people. If you happen to know somebody else, regardless of who it is, try to do that person first because there's already an existing relationship. I know that most people, if you ask them friendly and in person and you know them, they are willing to put through your own request and say, oh, you know what, I'll contact my colleague for you, or I'll inform him or her that you can go after that. So try to go for the lowest or strongest level of informal contact. Supporting tools, I give another presentation on LinkedIn and how it is underused and overlooked when it comes to fundraising strategy. That's another hour. I'm not going to talk about that now, but LinkedIn is really a strong supporting tool when it comes to American foundation fundraising. Nonlinear thinking. Try to think creatively when you want to reach out to people. So board members, for example, board members in the United States are often board members on other organizations' boards as well. So if that other organization then suddenly decides to organize a gala, maybe you buy a ticket for that gala, or that you coincidentally meet that board member in a different setting, location, and you can talk to that person about the other topic, which is dear to your heart. I'm just saying that you don't have to follow people to the supermarket, but try to think of how to get in touch with people. And the most two important elements are informal and introduction. You have to try to create an informal introduction because that's how people will listen to you. You do not connect, somebody else will connect for you, on your behalf, mentioning you. And this is why LinkedIn is so important, because that tool unearths information contacts of your connections all around the world, and you can see who is already connected to whom, and you can ask that person, would you mind introducing me, because I see you know this person. Always give a way out. There's many people on LinkedIn we don't really feel comfortable with introducing to, but you might be in good luck. I've done it myself many times, really successful. People really want to make that connection for you, make them personally invested in the cause, make them understand what you're doing. Again, so I don't email those people, I call them first, explain them over the phone or meet them. Try to get in touch that you have this, even if it's online, this type of introduction. So here I say again, this is a whole other hour of talking. I'm not going to do it. If you have a Xing account in Germany, that is great. Other countries have their own network, but you should open up a LinkedIn account as well if you want to do this type of fundraising. Color and culture. Americans are a bit different when it comes to meetings, and in the Netherlands, I'm always so surprised because meetings can go on for 2 hours or 2.5 hours. It's ridiculous. When I go to the US, it's like, welcome here. Did you have a good flight? How can I help you? Boom. Very direct. And even though the Dutch are direct, they would say that's a bit blunt. But on the other hand, from Americans' perspective, it's much more. You flew all the way to my place. I'm not going to waste your 1 hour that you have talking about nothingness. That's a waste of your time. That would be very disrespectful. So be careful when you enter the meeting. Really try to prep it. And that means role play. Really do a role play with somebody, preferably an American, that you have some feeling of how that meeting could go to. And that's also why I say 2 people if possible, so that if you blank, someone else can fill in. Now, a lot of these grants are from foundations, or from organizations that have never been in an office of a U.S. foundation. You don't need to go necessarily to the United States to get grants. I'm just saying there's different levels, and this is a way. Language, time zone, of course. If you go to New York, it's a different time zone. Think of that when you want to meet people, when are you at your best. If you're jet lagged, you have and the first day you have a meeting at 5 or 4 p.m., that jet lag is going to kick in around 3 p.m., and that might not be your strongest moment. Be careful of that. Politeness, talked about that. Important days. There's all kinds of days in the U.S. calendar that are very important to Americans, like the 4th of July, Thanksgiving. First of all, don't try to book any meeting for that. But secondly, send them a nice note like, hey, happy Thanksgiving or happy 4th of July. I hope you enjoy that. You don't even have to mention, once you have had the first contact, that you're working on that project. Just say that they don't forget you. This is the part of the cultivation phase already. So, of course, the best format to pitch is in person. I just said that's not always possible. There should be actually a 4th one, which is a Skype enabling visual, which is not bad either. But it depends, because some people are very strict. They want to maintain that wall around themselves as long as possible. They say, just email it to me, and then you're stuck. That's all you can do. That's why the strength of the connection, the informal connection that introduces you, is so important. That second phase is really, really crucial for the rest of that whole process. So, how many more minutes? 5? Okay, I'm going to ask, can I have one volunteer, please? Just for 2 minutes. Yeah? Oh, please. Yes, thank you. Come. Yep, come. Yep. Huh. Okay, so what we're briefly going to do is, come here so everybody can see you. You're going to represent your organization from Haiti. Let's just say you're in solar power. Okay, solar power. Haiti, I'm a program officer at the foundation, Ford Foundation. It doesn't really matter. You have been introduced to me by a mutual friend, Maria. Okay? Maria has introduced, and I told Maria, sure, I want to hear about this. He can give me a call. Now, what did I do before I get that call? What do you think that I did before that as a program officer?
Research. You did
research, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I checked out the website. In English. Okay. Now somebody was also, you have to turn around.
Okay.
This turn around. Back to back. This was my mistake. Somebody else told me, like, Eelco, this is not fair. You don't see each other over the phone, so you have to send back to back. Okay, fine. So we'll do it back to back. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pick up the phone, and then we're just going to take it from there. Okay?
Okay. So,
All right.
So I call first, right?
You call, bring me in, I'll pick up. So,
Okay.
okay, let's get started. So I
Right.
pick up, and I say, hello?
Hi. Hello. Hi. Is this Eelco?
Yes, it is. Who is this?
Hi. This is Duquesne. Maria introduced us.
Oh, right.
a while
Very.
back.
Yes, I remember. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Thank you. So thank you for your call. I had a look at your website. It looks very interesting.
No, thank you for taking the call. Actually, it's I know you're very busy, but I appreciate that you take the time to talk to me.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's actually true. I'm about to go to a board meeting, but let's go. Just a couple of questions. So tell me, how many lives did you change in 2015?
We changed about 300,000 lives through our solar program in Haiti, where we go to villages and install solar and creating an ecosystem for business development using the energy that's come from the solar system.
Okay, and can you break it down in terms of who are the people that you help?
So we help the farmers, and
Okay.
we also help the children. So we electrify the schools. We also work with the healthcare professionals, where we also help with vaccine prevention, conservations
Right.
through the clinics. So we kind of work with everybody, but mostly we work with the farmers, the healthcare, and the school system.
So what are your plans for the coming 3 years, and what budget would be next to that?
Well, we did, right now we've been working in one, area for Haiti. Our goal is to actually hold this program over the entire country, and we have a budget of $2 million where we are targeting about 100 villages that have on average 300 residents.
Right. On
or
your
households.
website, couldn't find anything on other funders. Do you have any other funders, like public money or any other private companies or anything?
No, we don't have a lot of funders. So we just really trying to create social business where we're trying also to create revenue stream from it. But
Okay.
in order to roll out this program, we're gonna need some funding, and we just started on trying to contact fundraisers and foundations and organizations that can help us reaching our goals.
I see. I really appreciate your call, and I'm sorry, I really have to go. This board meeting is about to start, but thank
Oh.
you again for calling.
Thank you so much, and then hopefully we can meet in person very soon and grab coffee. I know that we went to the same. You live in Harlem, and I live in Harlem. I'd like to also talk to you about your experience there.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, just shoot me an email, and we'll see if we can set something up.
All right, sounds
All right,
good.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bravo! Well done. And for those brave people out there, and I know they're for sale here, but I'm telling you, they're not organic. These are the ones you want to have. Those are traditional Dutch cookies, and no, you deserve them. Thank you very much. Very brief, because I know we have to go. He started out very correctly. He mentioned the connection, which made me feel at ease. Like, oh, that's right, and then it's okay. Then suddenly I have more time, and I was trying to be as bitchy as I could. I'm sorry for the wording. Like, I really tried. Like, I have a board meeting. I need to go. Questions. Tuck. You saw that I asked for numbers and impact, because that's what they really want to know. Try to have that impact in short, in English, not too many clicks away, please, on your website, so that we're all here to change lives or the environment or some sort of change that we want to create. Then be proud, be active, be clear. Put it on your website and make clear what the difference is that you're making. Thirdly, of course, I always cut off, and I try to sneak out without having that person create a follow-up moment, but he did. He was very good. He said, like, oh, Nate, can we meet? And then it's fine. Awesome. Thank you very much. This was, of course, not real, but the type of questions are real. They really want to know what you're doing. Yes? That's why partnering is so important. Yeah, because if you have received funding in the past, it's a sign of credibility, of strength. They really like it that they do that. So right. And remember, it's their job to give out money. They're not dummies. They know what you're calling for, right? But it's still get to know each other. Remember the cultivation process. Take your time before this moment. Don't talk about funding or money or grants or resources during that phone call unless specifically asked for. There are some other slides, but these are really the main elements I wanted to show to you. If you have any other question about this presentation now or later, I'll be here the rest of the day, or later send me an email. I want to thank you very much again for your attention. And if you want to go this route, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. So I hope you've, and this proves, and I think it's important to, fundraising can be learned.
It is, yeah.
It really
yeah.
is.
If I
The
can do it,
skills-
anybody can do it.
It can be learned. So good luck to all of you with that. And thanks very much for coming, Eelco. We'll now proceed without a coffee break anymore to the room we were in this morning, or where the photo was taken for the last session. And after the last, then I'll tell you more at the last session about what happens after the last session. Okay. Thanks.